we just don't do a form. We actually want to know your story. And the better you write the story, the better your chances are going to be for success.
Welcome to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc., where we feature experts in growth and brand visibility for law firms and architecture, engineering, and construction firms. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Gallo, your host and the Vice President of Client Services at Reputation Inc. If you don't know, we're a public relations and thought leadership marketing agency for B2B professional services firms, including architecture, engineering, and construction firms. To learn more, just go to rep-inc, that's Inc with a K.com. Okay, so we've launched a new series that dives into the top awards and rankings programs across the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. And we have some great guests lined up to lend insight into these. And today, we have a guest to lend some insight into the Design Build Institute of America Project and Team Awards, which, as you may know, recognize excellence, collaboration, and innovation in design build projects. Praful Kulkarni is the Director of Integrated Services at global integrated design firm CannonDesign. And on top of those responsibilities, he's actively involved in DBIA, serving as the chair of the National DBIA Awards Committee and as a former DBIA National Chair. Praful, welcome to the show, and really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Well, it's a great pleasure, Stephen. Thanks for this opportunity.
Of course. To begin, I guess we always love to hear a little bit about what brought you to this point in your career journey. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, Stephen, mine is a kind of a typical American immigrant story. I grew up in India with a very modest background in a village about 150 miles east of Mumbai. And through education, I was able to get into one of the top institutes in India, the Indian Institute of Technology. And after I did my architecture there, undergrad, I got a Rockefeller Foundation fellowship to come to the United States to study architecture at Illinois Tech, which is the famous Bauhaus architect Mies van der Rohe actually founded that school.
Wow.
And then I had a chance to go back to India, but really couldn't find a decent job because the Indian economy was pretty much a socialist model back then. And so I came back, worked with well-known USA firms like Skidmore, Owings & Merrill and URS, and moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Southern California. Actually started my own company after doing an MBA to provide services in design, construction management, and construction in 1991. And had a fairly successful run. And I actually merged my company with CannonDesign about 8 years ago. And my charge, I'm a partner, as you and I have discussed. And currently, I look at complex projects for the firm. Just brief background on CannonDesign. It's a 125-year-old company. And it excels in providing living-centered design, spaces for people. So that includes healthcare, education, science and technology, public agencies, what we call community civic, and commercial work, about 1,600 people.
Wow.
Mostly national. We do have offices in Mumbai, India, and also in Toronto, Canada.
Amazing.
So I enjoy doing what I do. And my association with DBIA has been for about 22 years. And it has been a real joy for me to kind of create this whole collaborative model for designers and builders with the owners. Our typical model the design bid build model, as opposed to these alternate delivery like design build and progressive design build models,
Right.
is kind of adversarial. It creates a lot of friction among the parties. It can be litigious. And some of the inefficiencies in executing the projects, both in terms of design, schedule, and cost, can be hampered using the design bid build model. So I find it very rewarding actually to look back and say, okay, did we make a difference? We are making a difference. And I'm looking forward to continuing to make the difference.
That's awesome. And yeah, ultimately, right, what designing and constructing the built environment is about, right? I mean, it's people occupying spaces, the impact it's having on their lives. So absolutely. And yeah, design build as a delivery method, you mentioned, has really been gaining a lot more traction for a lot of reasons. And so I'd love to talk a bit about folks who may have some of these projects in their portfolios they've recently completed, and might be interested, as you mentioned, in DBIA's Project and Team Awards. For those who may not be as familiar with the program, can you just help us understand what they are and why they become such a sought after recognition for AEC firms?
So, it's interesting. The beginnings of DBIA, the DBIA as a professional organization was formed in 1992, which is actually a year after I started my firm, and known as GKK Works back then. Of course, now CannonDesign. So it was started by builders who really felt that they could make a difference by creating an integrated design and construction model. And a lot of times, since the design community was not quite adept and they were not really recognizing the benefits of this model, we really, through the years or through the decades of founding DBIA, we have had to bring owners and designers to the table where they act as three partners as opposed to a prime sub relationship in design build that invariably ends up builder takes the lead and the designers are sub or sub-consultant to them. That's because of bonding requirements on the construction side. Typically, the professional services model that the designers have has a limitation on the bonding capacity because designers don't keep as a professional service large balance sheets. Constructors are required to do so for the bonding capacity. In any event, the point that I'm trying to make is the idea was to move the designers into a partnership with builders along with the owners so that we can actually produce high quality design, because initially people felt that, oh, the builders are going to have a shortcut here and they're going to do things that are expedient and may not result in great quality of work. So we have consistently worked on developing the model that has the right contractual languages and responsibilities for designers, where designers are actually equal partners with the builders and of course the owner. So over the years, we have consistently elevated the quality of projects and as we deliver them. And that has been successful, and the awards are an integral part of recognizing how we have and we continue to do that.
And it's an incredible program, an incredible way to get exposure for these projects, really showcase a lot of these advantages you're talking about through this program. And I guess I'm wondering too, right? I mean, I understand it's a comprehensive submission when you're submitting a project for one of these DBIA awards. I'm curious, are there, you've been on that committee for a number of years. I'm sure you've gotten some questions time and again. I'm curious what they are that you often are getting and hearing from folks who are applying.
Yeah, I believe I'm on that committee for 14 years. So we actually revamped that in the early teens, and we continue to monitor that every year going forward, where we look at the quality of the submissions and what the requirements may be. So just in the kind of the brief period, we also seek feedback from the applicants as well as the winners, so that we understand what is important to them in terms of this recognition, which is really a comprehensive recognition, right? I mean, you have the AIA, American Institute of Architects, you have the AEC, engineering folks. They tend to be designers, then builders. There is also AGC, Association of General Contractors, and they have awards as well. Whereas Design Build is a comprehensive award that goes from design through construction. So that means we are looking at three key areas: design excellence, which is not just the what you should say visual design experience, but it is a total integrated design quality experience. So that means engineering systems, the building systems that we use, the structural systems, how efficient they can be. Also, owners have budgets. Can we do the absolute best within that budget for that price with high quality? So Design Build is able to accomplish that. So we have three major categories: design excellence, the process of delivering a project from the beginning to the end, and how well we integrated those processes between the design and construction teams and the overall sequencing of the project. And then the teaming. Did we form the right team? First of all, did we go to an owner who appreciates what we do in Design Build? Number one. Number two, did we find the right design partner or a build partner so that we can truly execute what the owner wants? And did we actually come out at the end of the project still staying great friends together? That's Design Build. Okay, that's like a happy combination all the way around, because invariably in design bid build projects, you end up, the contractual relationships are such where the owner contracts with designer, the owner contracts with builder separately. Yeah. And now the owner is somehow managing these two entities, and they don't necessarily want to talk to each other especially if it is a bid project, right? Mm-hmm. That means the lowest number gets the award.
Right.
And guess what? Now the builder is trying to make sure that the project is profitable. They're at risk. So they are looking at every change order. They're looking at what faults there are in the design. And there is an old established law, a little over 100 years old now, Sperrin Doctrine, that basically says that contractor will get paid for anything that is missing in the construction documents or the design drawings. So that creates inherent friction in the design bid build and construction management at risk deliveries. Where design build, it's a whole different paradigm. It's a design build paradigm of collaboration and integration and creating cohesive teams.
Yeah, and it's what makes design build unique from those traditional models, right? I mean, there's so much more inherent collaboration that needs to happen. And I guess to show that off and really showcase how that was accomplished in one of these projects, for folks who are, submitting for the DBIA awards, do you have any, I guess, top tips for those firms who might be submitting a project? Things to kind of keep in mind, or perhaps things that you see folks typically get wrong or missteps?
Well, clearly, as I talked about those three key elements, right? design excellence, the process, and the teaming.
Yeah.
That's how the whole submission is structured. Obviously, you have to provide images and you have to provide statistics in terms of if there are cost overruns and the reason for that, how the budgets were maintained. And then you may not adhere to the initial budgets and schedules, but there are probably very good reasons why they didn't happen. For example, if the owner increased the scope of work, okay, now that's going to cost more, right? This is a given. It may affect your schedule as well because of the nature of that increment, if you will. So explain all that so that you don't unnecessarily lose points, right? It is, and the more you show about the benefit of how the owner wanted the best team possible, and then the team itself had the best people in terms of their talents, both on the design and construction side. Explain that. And it is actually pretty prescriptive in the sense that there are points that you can make for each one of those pieces. And as you and I were discussing a little earlier, we just don't do a form. We actually want to know your story. And the better you write the story, the better your chances are going to be for success.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Providing that narrative, and it sounds like you're saying as well, providing the context to the story, right? Explain why some of those things unfolded, because the more context, the better. Is that, I don't know, I'm wondering, is that something that is maybe a common misconception, or is there anything else about the judging process that is often maybe misunderstood?
Not so much. I mean, sometimes people, especially designers, if they are submitting on behalf of the design build team, they tend to kind of think, oh, this might be another AIA kind of a submission. It isn't. It is, as I said, it is a much more holistic project look, if you will, getting into the depths of, were there any accidents on the project, on the construction side? And then the other piece that happens is we get submissions roughly about half and half, half on the building side, vertical side, and half on the infrastructure side. So there are nuances to both. When it comes to the vertical side, you have a number of subtrades. Mechanical, electrical engineering, structural systems, foundations, site packages, all kinds of specialties. You could have as many as 50, 60 subtrades. So managing all that as a design for the design build team is a difficult job. Compared to a horizontal project, you may not have as many subtrades. You may have 4 or 5 or 6 or 10. So showing that what you are able to do by using technology, VDC, all these things matter. And how did you keep track of the cost? If the owner's budget was, let's say, $100 million at the beginning, how did you actually track that through the project and were able to maintain that across the board? That needs to be illustrated, because there is a lot of give and take. So the basic premise here is that designers are taught to be kind of reiterative process, right? I mean, they first draw it up and then say, oh, I can make that better. Do it again. Oh, I missed that. Maybe I can make that better. I can talk to the owner and see how that space could be used. Whereas construction is a linear, sequential process. So people who think where both those could come together in the best possible way typically have successful projects. And one should be able to illustrate that when you do your submission.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, there are so many moving parts, as you said, right, between the different disciplines. And I guess I'm wondering, we say provide a lot, as much context as possible. Is there certain information that maybe is more noise or clutter versus the detail that is helpful? Or is it best just to really include as much of the story as possible? Or is there any kind of focus in particular that I guess would be helpful for folks?
Well, as I said, these three things. Right? So the way the awards are structured, we have different sectors, right? We have healthcare,
Mhm.
we have education, we have public buildings, um, we have renovation projects, we have small special projects. So there are 5, 6 different categories. Sometimes we tweak with them or tweak them. So be mindful of where your project fits, right? That's number one. Then follow the basic questionnaire and do your absolute best to kind of weave a story through all that.
Yeah.
Right? Then we also have special awards like the Chairman's Award for social benefit, for example. There are Enlightened Owner Award. That means owner that is moving from the design, bid, build, traditional delivery to design, build models. How were they? We actually hand out those special owner awards to illustrate the how that owner was able to move from this traditional delivery to design build, and how much progress they actually made in terms of how the project got delivered. So all these nuances come into play.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I know we've had some clients who have submitted projects in the past. And so it's very comprehensive, but as you said, it's also very instructive. You're not kind of left without a roadmap. That submission really kind of tells you what it is expected and kind of breaks those sections out pretty well. So I mean, that part is pretty straightforward and I think user friendly. And I'm wondering though, right? I mean, it is still a robust application, as you mentioned. How do you recommend firms prepare so that it doesn't fall on all at once on them? Because I'm sure, you inevitably have some folks who procrastinate or they think, oh, this is like you mentioned, those other AIA, AGC, perhaps other awards that fit into a certain category and they underestimate this one. Any advice?
I think if you look at that form or the questionnaire and kind of keep track of what that project needs to illustrate in terms of the basic parameters, and that way you don't have to reinvent like number of man hours spent on the project, for example, or what changes were made, when did some additional service oriented change orders occurred. All that you kind of need to, I'm sure that information exists. It's just a matter of keeping track of it so that you can pull it. And the other mistake that firms tend to make is that they give it to their marketing groups who don't necessarily understand design build as a methodology. You need somebody, hopefully the project executive or the project manager from the design build team, really engaged to tell the story, as opposed to leaving it just to the marketing folks, because it is different. And that really helps, because if I was the project executive who was the main contact with the client as well as our design build team, then I'm going to better illustrate what the intent was and how the project evolved and how it got executed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not the sort of thing that can be completed in a vacuum, right? I mean, I know that's something we talk about around here a lot is this whole philosophy of knowledge extraction and really getting to dig in, like you said, with the account executives, the project managers, the subject matter experts that are on the ground in touch with the project and really understanding how to pull those stories out of them and the why of the project, not just the what, right? So don't wait to the last minute, it sounds like is good advice. And collect that info
Yeah,
along the way.
keep track of it. and look at your project like, hey, we're going to make this thing as an award-winning project. So in order to put our best case forward, how do we do that? What story do we need to tell? I mean, some of the things that, and we have about 14, 15 people as the jury members, and collectively we look at the finalists and so on and so forth. But initially we have actually a smaller group that takes a certain category and brings that to the entire jury. So the projects that kind of get the most attention have some kind of a special story, right? Like the community was struggling to get this project done. Finally, there was a bond passed, and there is this money that came in, and now how it affected the community. I mean, these are like, what is, I mean, design build is good for the communities, right? So because it is a more efficient, higher quality product that stays within the limits of budget and schedule. So if that somehow comes across in the storytelling, I think your chances of success are going to be higher.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's really the marriage of that, right? Like the storytelling, perhaps, marketing narrative piece of it, but that technical expertise and understanding the context of design build that you were talking about, to really make that winning combination. Anything else? I want to also kind of pivot a little bit before we wrap up to talk a bit about some of the broader industry trends perhaps you're seeing and have seen over the years. But anything else in relation to the awards programs themselves, the jury applications that we haven't touched on that would be helpful for folks looking to apply?
So one thing you have, and I meant to talk a little bit more about this, is that the trend, right? The trend in the country is moving towards design build delivery. More than half the projects now in the country are being delivered through design build. Again, I'm not including the housing side of things, like private, housing builders and developers doing. We kind of leave that segment alone. But the rest of the major project segments are clearly moving in that direction. The movement really started on the West Coast, and now it's permeating all the way through the East. As you probably are aware, New York City and New York State now also have implemented this. So it's here. It is getting better all the time in terms of the value proposition. And the other thing that we do is we actually, when we let the competitors know that they have received an award, and then the levels start to go up from there to all the way from like the three areas as we talked about: best in process, best in design, best in teaming, and then ultimately we have Project of the Year award. Right. So it's, and obviously we are cognizant of the fact that the Project of the Year, and it can come from any kind of a building type, actually meets the criteria for what the Project of the Year award should be. And it could come either from the infrastructural side or from the building side. And we've had a number of projects on the infrastructural side that have been Project of the Year projects as well. So, it's a wide open field, and we, as I said, every year we make every effort to elevate our criteria to judge, and the quality of the project keeps getting better every year.
That's awesome. And I'm wondering, I mean, with the applications and the award-winning projects you've seen kind of come across the transom over the years, Have you noticed any pattern or I guess maybe industry-wide trends based on the submissions you're reviewing? I'm just curious from like a macro level if you've noticed anything there.
So there is a misnomer, for example, like you can only do certain projects as design build projects. So we actually see uh, even renovation projects, large renovation projects, are starting to utilize design build because there is a lot more flexibility in the design build delivery compared to design build, especially for renovation projects, because you tend to find uh, hidden existing conditions that affect how the renovation project may shape up in terms of change orders and unforeseen conditions, as we call it in the industry. So we have seen really the increase in design build projects through the size as well as different sectors. So that's kind of what we see as we're moving forward.
Interesting. Yeah. Seeing it proliferate beyond just some of the more common industries and verticals that we've seen it burgeoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Looking at, I guess, out to the horizon from your perspective, and based on what you're seeing and hearing, is there anything that AEC firms, design build firms should be preparing for, maybe keeping on their radar in the next 12 to 18 months? And I recognize that that may be a loaded question, right? Because it feels like we live in more uncertainty on a daily basis, it seems. But I wonder if there is anything that you're picking up or hearing in your circles that you're paying attention to.
Well, we kind of have a little bit of a divide. You have large firms doing large projects, right? And there seems to be a lot of work in that space. So the design builders, designers, builders are busy with large projects. We see that the mid-sized projects and smaller projects are shrinking in size in terms of both numbers as well as the cost. And those firms are having a harder time in terms of what's happening in the next 12 to 18 months. Uh, of course, there is a ton of work on the data center side because of the AI investments that are coming in.
Sure.
And that work is also ideally suited for design build projects. So that is kind of taken the capital, the capex, if you will, from the plethora of different sectors, and firms are starting to invest, corporations are investing money more on the AI side. So some of these areas are going to obviously see that the workload may be reduced.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, no doubt, AI is not going anywhere, and we're definitely seeing the ripple effects of that,
Yeah.
particularly as you mentioned, data center space and beyond. I suppose if there's maybe one piece of advice that you would give to design build professionals who are interested in DBIA and the DBIA awards specifically, what would it be? Anything we haven't touched on there that if there was, I guess, one big takeaway?
Well, I think the big takeaway has always been about how many different types of professionals are engaged in DBIA. You got the owners, you got the builders, you got the designers, you got the subtrades, and then you got specialty consultants like accountants or technology folks. There are design build providers of acoustical services, for example. So we have a true mix of all the different pieces that are required to deliver a project, and that's very unusual for a professional organization. And then we have really promoted DBIA to be that all-inclusive organization that invites all these professionals into the membership and all our education and contractual materials, everything is really a result of our diverse membership. We make sure that there are owners and builders and designers and other subspecialties included in our various committees, which is obviously the awards committee is an indicative of that, as well as our board, for example. And so these are all the different pieces that start to work for us.
For sure. Anything else, I guess, with this next award cycle coming up, just to close things out, what's sort of next for you, or anything that you're anticipating around the corner here as we stare down the year ahead?
Well, I'm excited. The deadline is June 1, as I recall from the latest assignment. Latest announcement.
Yes.
And then in July, we're going to get together and go over the submissions. And then, of course, the winners get announced or invited to the annual conference, typically in November.
Of course. Yeah. So that clock is ticking, but there is still time. Again, we've been talking to Praful Kulkarni of CannonDesign and DBIA. As you said, don't forget, entries due June 1st. So be on the lookout for that. And sincerely, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today, for coming on and chatting.
Well, it's really my pleasure. And, I'm available for any other insights I can provide.
Really appreciate it.
Steven.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.